Oh yeah, but you don't tell the one that one.
No, I didn't tell that one.
You didn't tell that one.
I didn't tell that one.
Ooh, yes, Lord.
No, you can't tell that one.
I thank God I got battery that I charged my stuff.
Let me think. I'm
Oh,
still trying
yeah,
to think
we
of a
are
story,
live.
Robin.
So, praise the Lord. It says that we just went live, but it's not saying it on here.
It takes a second, but you're ready. We're good.
Okay. All right. So, all right. We were just talking, and we were just having some funny conversation over here. So, hey, everybody! For those of you that are tuning in and watching us a little early, we're about to have a good time tonight. But tell me one instance, a funny situation. I'm sitting here with 3 educators, right? So, tell me a funny instance, a funny story that happened between you and a student or a child that was in your ministry or classroom. So, Tiara, you go first.
Should I go first? Okay, so one day with the kiddo, we're working on some math or whatever, and the little girl says to me, she's like, Miss Manigault, I really like you. And I'm like, I like you too. And she's like, you should date my dad. And I'm like, whoa, like, what are we talking about here? And she's like, yeah, he's married to my mom, but whatever. Like, oh, we can't do that, baby.
Oh, no.
That's not an option.
No filter.
None. Kids
Yeah,
have no filter.
yeah, kids. Yeah, you were saying they don't have a filter.
None.
Yeah, she just totally didn't have a filter. So she didn't particularly care for Mama, at least on that day.
Not on that day.
Not on that.
Not on that day. Robin, what
So
about
I have one. Out of the mouths of babes.
Yeah.
Out of the mouths of babe. So in Little Linkland, I was taking one of my little boys to the restroom, and I set him on the potty, and I was trying to help him get situated so that it would go into the potty. And he stopped me and opened his legs and said, "Why is my penis so little?" I didn't know what to say.
All right. I had a comment after that, but I'm going to leave that alone.
I want to know the comments.
No, you don't want. I don't want to get in trouble.
He should ask his dad.
Yeah. So he okay. Well, yeah. You tell him he gonna grow up, and as he
Yes.
grows,
Right.
yeah. Praise the Lord. What about?
That one takes the cake.
So they work with the smaller ones. My big kids are not as exciting as I don't know if I can come past this. I just know. There have been a lot of things over the years, but one thing that stands out. I was teaching. I teach math, so I was very serious about the mathematics of the day. And I was standing there, and a student raised his hand, and I said, "Yeah, can I help you?" He was like, "Miss Houston, you married?" And I said, "Yes." He's like, "Dang." Like, it didn't even matter. Nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
kids are fun.
They
though.
say
are.
that the
They are.
teachers of today are way more attractive. Not to say that the teachers of yesterday aren't, but they say these teachers are younger, more attractive, more appealing, funner, more energy. So yeah, these kids are hitting on these teachers these days.
Or trying to hook them up with their
Right.
parents.
Or trying to
So
right.
serious about it.
Right.
They're married parents.
So it's 7:00. Welcome to everybody that's on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram Live. Thank you for being a part of this evening. I want to welcome some people. There's G Fields, Melanie, Rotown 313. All right, Rotown 313. Is that Detroit? What's up, Rotown? I can't see the picture on here. But hey, glad to have you. Let's see here. I'm doing a little bit today. Who said I'm not multifunctional? Claudia, you on here checking out your daughter. I know what you're doing out here. Say hi to your mama.
Hi, Mom.
Deborah, Deborah, Kiwi. I see you, Kiwi. Pastor George Houston is on here because he's making sure that he keeps his eyes on his wife. But thank you for being a part on this evening. I'm Pastor Trish. I am joined by 3 lovely ladies, but not only are they lovely ladies, they are lovely educators. Tiara Manigault, who's a special needs or special education educator. Robin Johnson, she is our Linked Up Little Linkland director, our nursery director, but she also owns Robin's Nest. What is Robin's Nest? What's the full name?
Robin's Nest Preparatory Academy.
Robin's Nest Preparatory Academy. I was going to leave out the preparatory. I was just going to say academy, so I'm glad I asked her. And then we have Minister Carol Houston, who is our children's church minister at Linked Up Kids, but she's also an awesome math teacher. for Pebblebrook High School. So welcome and thank you for sharing your Wednesday evening with us. So listen, we were talking a little bit, and we're still talking about parenting, but I really wanted to talk about parenting from the perspective of the educator, because they spend time with these little people. Now, if you don't have kids, you don't want to go anywhere, because we will bridge this to how this impacts adulthood. And a lot of things that you might hear on this evening may make you, sort of recoil and say, hey, maybe that was me as a student, that was me as a kid, and this has impacted me as an adult, not just from the social aspect of being a student, but also from an academic perspective. So I suggest and encourage you to stay tuned to us, and we do want to know who's watching and where you're watching us from. Nas, thank you. Our Nas is not with us on this evening. She's at home taking care of herself, so we're praying speedy and complete healing and recovering from the inside out. But listen, we talked about funny stories, but we were just talking about this generation of students, right? And how, I am developing a more graceful filter as well, but I don't know how else to say it. So I'm just going to say it the way I know how to say it without using a whole lot of words. A lot of times as teachers, I don't know a teacher yet, and I know thousands, like literally, I do know thousands of teachers out there, whether by close association or by association, that have not said to themselves with any student, whether it was an exceptional student or whether it was a challenging student, that once they met the parent, oh, I understand that student better.
Yes.
And so there's a perspective of parenting that educators gain from the experiences that they have from the children, right? And it doesn't matter if they are nursery aged, elementary or middle school aged, or high school age. So tell me about, and I want to put this question out on the floor for you all's discussion. What are some of the things that you experienced as an educator that you saw was indicative of parenting? And not just the personality of the child. Like, we're all products of our environment, but there's parenting pluses and parenting minuses that you all, I know, have seen and experienced that you could equate back to the parent. And this is going to a place where we were talking about earlier, advocating versus helicoptering.
I think, like we mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things, especially with like the younger kids, because I teach kindergarten, is just the independence aspect, and parents knowing that you don't have to do like every little thing for your kiddo, knowing that even at like 5 or 6 it starts with the small stuff, like you can get yourself dressed, or I'm gonna let you carry your book bag, or I'm not gonna drive home and get your lunchbox because you forget it. Like, starting with those small little steps of independence at those young ages really makes a difference with their schooling as they grow up.
That's interesting coming from you. So how would you then translate that to someone who might be a parent of a special needs child?
That's a good question. I would explain to that parent that although you have a child with special needs, that disability doesn't, or exceptionality doesn't necessarily define your child, and that your child is very very well capable of still, learning just like any other kiddo would. So it's just knowing what your child needs and adapting it, per se, but knowing that your child is very well still capable.
So is that your experience having had worked with children of special educational needs, IEP? I'm just going to throw it out there. People who have IEP credentials behind them, their parents did what needed to be done. Do you find that oftentimes the parent may overcompensate for that child?
Yes, but not necessarily in that regard. I have seen that parents often parent out of guilt sometimes, for lack of a better word. And it's not that they're not teaching them to be responsible or like those needs that they have, but it's more so, I'm going to buy my child, I'm going to spoil my kiddo because I feel bad, because that type of thing. So I would say I've seen it more from that versus I'm going to do everything for them.
Okay, and so then that has been counterproductive.
Absolutely. Absolutely, most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so what were you about to say?
I was going to say, a lot of times today, I'm finding parents, they put up a wall. I'm not really sure what my child's special need is, so
that's a
I'm
good
just
point.
going to walk away. I'm going to pretend like there's no special need. You deal with my child. You decide
Yes.
what's best for them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that has been something in ministry. We found that to be true for a number of situations where the parent was either in denial or just put their head in the sand about the situation.
Yeah.
And I think it's more put their head in the sand too.
And
Yeah.
and then
Stork.
then when as a kid continues to grow and advance to the next grade level, if they make it to the next grade level, the impact on that kid, not just academically,
Yeah.
but the social
Social,
impact,
yes.
the self-esteem impact, the emotional impact is so grave that oftentimes now you have a tandem or a multi-issue because you didn't at least get it checked out in the beginning.
In the beginning.
Yeah,
Were
I agree.
you-
Well, I mean, speaking to what you guys were saying, what I found is that a lot of times the parents they don't feel equipped, and it's not necessarily that they're just putting their head in the sand. They just don't know what to do. It's just not something that they've had to deal with, and they just don't know what to do. And so, whenever you have people in your life that have special needs kids, they need support.
Yeah.
Right.
They need
That's
support
true.
from the family. They need support from the school system, the teachers, the principals, the counselors, and friends. They just need a lot of support because it takes a lot. So just knowing that, sometimes they just
Yeah.
need some direction.
That's good,
But if you
Minister
have
Carey.
that situation, they have to be willing to even share that to
Yeah.
let people know that I don't know what to do. I need help
Right.
to get the help that you need.
And I think to piggyback off of that, like just knowing that you are your child's like biggest advocate.
Right.
And if you don't know, you have every right to go to that school, to ask that teacher, to ask that counselor, help me, tell me what I need to know, what are my resources, and they should supply you with that.
So, it's good that you bring that up. So we were talking earlier, and I think this bit some exchange. So I encourage you, if you have questions or even comments, share them, please. Because even though we're talking to educators about parenting, and in most cases regarding current students, I was about to read a sign out loud, but the reality is that this stuff that we're talking about now still is very much alive in many of the adults. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I'll say this. I just got through reading an article where they were saying that today, millennials, that means that you're anywhere from the age of 21 to 28, is it? Or something like that. I can't remember what the age is for millennials
28.
right now. Is it 28? Up to 28. They're saying that millennials, people who are currently in the job market, aren't interested in keeping a job, the same job, for more than 3.5 years. In fact, this one right here made it known that her goal was to be retired by the time she was 50.
Yes.
Now today, retirement age is 65. The only thing you getting at the age of 50 is an AARP letter. But other than that, 25 to 40 are millennials.
Yeah, I thought it was
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh.
40?
To 40?
25 to 40. So I think they did that because of the least number of babies during that season.
Right.
I don't know.
They switched it up.
But millennials are 25 to 40. Thank you for my fact checker, Xavier. So we have people 25 to 40 years old who aren't interested in keeping a job for more than 3.5 years. Then they're saying that the younger generation, my kids, this generation, what are they called? I generation? I generation, they're saying that they're trying to be deployed. We're teaching them deployment, which is a good thing, but they're trying to be self-employed and not even be subject to the taxation of these Americas by the time that they're 30 years old in many cases. I know that's my daughter's trajectory all day long, which means what? Pension funds, 401ks, things like that. We know Social Security might not even exist. And not only that, but then they're saying that and we talked about this briefly, and these kids want what they want now. So the whole Robin Hood situation with GameStop, the whole Dogecoin situation, they are driving the economy, and they are showing that our 400-year economy can be upset in a matter of days because they have what? They know the handle of social media. So anyway, so with that being said, advocating versus helicoptering. We were talking about that earlier. So one of y'all, be the bold one and define the helicopter parent for us, just so we can make it clear.
I don't.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, as a parent myself, because I'm a parent as well, and I am,
Hi, Erin. Hi, Kelsey. Hi, Sarah.
For me, I have to try to, on purpose, make sure that I don't become the helicopter parent, because I want things to be done right. I want them to be done on time. And so what we as parents have to do is we have to, as the children get older, we have to give them more space to make more decisions, to be more accountable for their actions, to be more responsible. I know she was talking about a lunchbox earlier, but just, whatever your child's age is, you want to find age-appropriate things for them to be doing. Yeah. Are they doing chores, at home? Are they helping out? Are they, just leaving their drink on the table and expecting somebody else to come through and pick it up? Just little things that we have to start doing. Are they waking themselves up if they're in high school? Different things that we have to start just training our kids to do, so that they can be responsible, adults, when the time comes.
So you all made a comment, and I think this bit's repeating, and I'll repeat it. You all were telling me, help me make sure I get it right. We were having a conversation, and they were telling me that, Tiara, you were saying parents have to advocate for their child, which means holding that teacher accountable. And so say the whole thing, holding the teacher accountable, then makes the teacher hold the student accountable.
Yes, yeah.
And therefore the student residually usually is more successful.
Yeah, because it's, the saying, like, it takes a village to raise a child. Teachers are a part of that village when your kiddo is in our class. So the constant communication and accountability held with the parent to the teacher, make sure that the teacher and the parent are on the same page, so that child knows that, listen, these people be emailing back and forth, they be talking, like, I know I can't just fall to the background or slack off because the teacher and the parent are on the same page. And that's very important for children's success, because it's very easy for a kid to fall to the background.
So then, but on the flip side, if the parent is MIA, I show up for parent conferences and that's it, then it's easier for that child to slip through the cracks. Not because the teacher is just not paying attention to the kid, but the level of accountability and communication just has not been established.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that child falls to the wayside.
I wanted to say something about that, if that's okay. I know, like, I teach high school, they teach elementary school, and what I've seen is that a lot of times, because children are very young, then the parents are more hands-on. Not always, but more than they are when they get older. And I think it is very important when they are teenagers, for even though you may not, you're not doing everything for them, but you do need to hold them accountable, keep up with grades. Mostly everything is online these days. So, you're checking their grades, checking their attendance. Did you know your child skipped my class yesterday? You did it because you're not checking the attendance. So things like that, I've talked to parents. I had a parent conference because this virtual situation has been very interesting.
Yes.
And I have high schoolers that are at home alone, and I know the name is on the screen, but the child is far from it. So, but even with that, I had a conference just with all the parents, and I told them how to check their attendance. Several parents found out that their children, my daughter hasn't been coming for a week and a half, and I didn't even know it. And so we do still have to hold them accountable and make sure we're keeping up and, with what they're doing. And I see that starts slipping as the children get older to high school, but it's still very important for you to be active and for them to know that you're watching what they're doing.
We have questions. We have quite a few questions, actually. Okay. So here's a question. Hey, Dave. Anyway, it says, what about parents that begin to see the results of medicating a child for several years for additional monies to support their household?
Say it one more time.
So
I don't
it-
know if I-
What about parents that begin to see the results of medicating a child for several years for additional monies to support their household? So I don't know if this is a Medicaid situation. I guess I need a little bit more clarification. I thought you all might know it, that there was a,
No, I'm not.
yeah, so I'm not sure about that one. So I apologize if you could just share more information. Okay. You got the questions?
I have some of them, yes.
Okay, Xavier, I can't.
She can't do it all.
I can't do it all.
All right. Well, we were talking about helicoptering, and
Oh, correction, because I was just corrected on social media.
Yes.
They call it drone
Drone
parenting.
parenting.
Drone
Yes.
parenting.
So we got to
Okay.
catch up to 2021.
yes.
Okay.
So we were
Drone
talking about
parenting.
drone parenting, and a question came in and said, "How do you equip your high schooler to self-advocate after you've been a drone mom for the entire time?"
I think if you are as diligent helping that child to self-advocate as you were being a drone parent, that child, it will help them.
Yeah, and just pushing them to have like those conversations for themselves, and even if you feel the need to like prep them for the conversations,
Yeah.
like, hey, this will be
Yes.
the topic. This
Role
is, you know,
play.
like, yeah, role play it. I think that'll help a lot too.
Yeah, with my son. Now, my daughter, for some reason, when she had to advocate, if she got a bad grade, she was gonna let you know. She's gonna go to 10 on you. But my son, he was like, "Oh, bad grade, okay." And then sometimes he'll talk to him about it, something. So I had to coach him into advocating for himself, because my thing is, if you're telling me the truth that you didn't earn this grade,
Yeah.
then okay, then you got to go and talk to them. I had to incentivize them, but if you don't talk to them, then I have to believe that this grade is
Yeah.
accurate.
Right.
So therefore, you're in trouble twice for lying to me, and then for not getting a good grade after you knew to study.
Right.
Right.
Oh, that boy would be fast into that teacher's office. Should that be the case? And he became a very good advocate for himself. So yeah.
Well, that's a great segue to another question we had. Says, what if you know your child has challenges, but the school isn't helping?
Well, it depends on what the challenge is, because it's a team effort. And so
Right.
a lot of times, if there are challenges that my children have, I'm the first one to help. And so I would have to, if I felt like it was something that I needed help, that they needed help from a teacher, a counselor, or whoever, then we could talk to that person together. But I think just keeping the lines of communication open are very important. Most teachers want to help your child.
Yeah.
Right.
They're
We're
not
here to help.
They're
Yeah.
not there to not help, but they do need. Sometimes they don't know how to help, just like you may not know how to help. And so you just want to start the conversation and figure out what the needs are and what you guys can collectively do to help the situation.
Right. I often tell people in ministry, just on GP, no one is responsible for your healing and your health. The doctors aren't, the physicians aren't, the drugs aren't, the pharmacist isn't. So I tell them, you're responsible, and then it's your responsibility between prayer and your peace to advise and instruct and agree to or disagree to the care that the doctors or whoever want to administer. The same is true for the parent. Scripture tells us over and over again, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. Parents, raise your children up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. It's just not a spiritual thing. It's a natural thing too. So the first responsible party, if the child is having challenges, is the parent. It's the parent's responsibility to, again, get the child assessed, whatever that might take. If it's an academic or issue, if it's a social issue, or whatever the case may be, whatever the challenges are, it is the parent's responsibility to figure that out. The teacher has anywhere from 15 to 35 other kids to deal with. And so it's not their responsibility to figure out what the challenge is. once you figure out what the challenge is, in most cases, they're going to give you the prescription of care.
Right.
They're going to give you a regimen that may be needed. And then that's when you now employ the buy-in with the teachers or the school system or whatever the case. I don't know. You all can speak to it. That's just been.
What I would say, I mean, the primary responsibility of the teacher is to teach the child. So if we're talking about help in a subject, then of course that's different. They should do that. And so then you would have to find out when is tutoring available, and who else offers tutoring in that subject. And there are times when you may want to find someone outside of the school to help, but they should be there to provide academic support for sure.
Right. Here's a good question that I have here. It says, I'm not a parent yet. However, I'm noticing that homeschooling is growing more popular. What is some advice you'd give regarding resources and setting the children up for success?
In regards to homeschooling?
To
That's a good
homeschooling.
question.
There are plenty of resources out there available for homeschool. There's homeschool associations that you can belong to if you don't want to do the homeschooling yourself. You can be a part of a co-op of homeschools, but the homeschool field is growing more and more. And if you're going to commit to being a homeschool parent, you have to know that that commitment is a big commitment. Yes. You're investing into your child what you expect teachers to do all the time. So you have to be equipped when you're ready to do homeschooling.
Right. Yeah, our homeschool guru is Tonette.
Right.
And there are a lot of programs out there, but there's also like the co-op. I do love the co-op programs where the child has their at-home learning, but then they go to a space, an educational space, where they might have a lab to do chemistry. They have gym, so that they could have gym classes. They have
physical education.
Phys ed or whatever the case may be. Other co-op type of, well, not co-op, but other extra educational opportunities.
Extracurricular.
Yeah, extracurricular. Like I think there was a cooking class that was offered. That was part of the the entire curricula. So that's good. Now I was talking earlier about how this translates into adulthood, right? Is there another question?
There was one more.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. My son is totally different than my daughter.
Ooh, Jesus, honey.
Yes.
Amen.
That's
I get
true.
it.
That's true.
We
My
agree.
son is
We all agree.
Her two
should I-
daughters are different. No, I'm just
How should I challenge and motivate him to be a better student?
We were talking about that
We
earlier.
were just
with
talking
your
just
son.
talking about that.
earlier. Go. Have your way.
I think that help me, how can I say this? It has a lot to do with just figuring out like who he is as a person and what type of incentives would motivate him, and like I don't think there's anything wrong with incentives or bribing, just a little bit like, hey, we can go do this, we can go to this game, we can go do this if
Did
you
she
get
just say
this.
bribe? Did she just say bribe in my mic? No, I'm just kidding.
Just a little bit. Just nothing crazy, but just really getting to know him and what motivates him, because he's different, he's unique. Not one thing is going to work for every child, so just figuring out exactly what works for him and pressing in on that.
We were just talking, say what you said earlier. We were just talking about this boy versus girl learning.
Yeah.
I don't know what I said.
Okay,
and
so
I have all girls, and you were mentioning, you mentioned your son.
yeah, so we were talking, and you all were saying, I think it was you, when you go into an AP class,
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, you did about the boys.
and how the AP class will be majority girls, but when you go to the
Lower level
lower
classes.
learning classes, we done skipped honors.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we go down to the basic learning class, and you'll say that would be the majority boys, and not just boys, but especially for our
Boys of
minority
color.
especially
boys of color. And so I was just saying that one thing I do realize is that a lot of times, well, we know this is fact. Boys are not as mature as our girls. Number one.
Right.
Number two, biblically speaking, boys are created to work, reward. Work, reward. I love what my sister-in-law did. She made my nephew start paying. There's no wonder that this boy's money. This boy has more money as a 19-year-old in his bank account than most adults do. but she started them paying rent. I think it was like $1 a month at the age of 5. They had to earn their allowance, and she would have them pay rent, and it would go up a little bit each year.
Yeah.
And I don't think it ever got more than about $15-$20 a month. But she taught them that you live here, you have to contribute,
Right.
not just in your duty, but in your finances. And so I think that with boys, we really have to train them early in the work reward system, and we have to be careful not to give them rewards before they've earned it.
Yes, that's good. Yeah.
And I think that's really important too, because this millennial age right now, there are more boys, even girls too, living at home with their parents because they were not taught that at an early age.
Or no, that's
helicopter.
good. Yeah. No, I
No,
like it.
excuse me, drone.
Jerome.
Yeah, so, okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just the question came in that's a perfect segue on that. So,
Okay.
Okay.
Said, how do you deal with a child who seemingly has his or her way at home and expects to conduct themselves that very same way at school? Wait. And that parent who feels their child can do no wrong.
We were just talking. You all just.
We're
I
in our
know I'm filled with the
conversation.
Holy Spirit because all this was part of the Holy Spirit, our conversation prior to. So, yeah. So, that drone parenting situation, right? Tell your story, the lunchbox girl.
So really quick, so every day, and I had a conversation with this student. She would be a car rider. She got dropped off at school, and she intentionally left her lunchbox at home. And I talked to her one day. I'm like, baby girl, what are we doing? Like, that lunchbox is your responsibility. Well, I know mommy will bring it to me, which her mom did every morning. She would, before going to work, she would bring that lunchbox right back up to the school. And I went up there one day and I was like, hey, when she leaves this lunchbox at home tomorrow, don't bring it back. And she's like, okay. I said, I promise you she won't leave it again. So the next day, of course, she left it at home. Baby girl's looking for that lunchbox. I was like, I think you might have to eat school lunch. Unwell. Never left that lunchbox at home again. Ever. Like, it was amazing just how that one day, like, oh, I can't have my way all the time, really whipped her into shape.
So we know the world is not like that, right?
No.
And so the world is not going to give you what you want just because you expect it. If you act like a brat in the world, the world is going to kick you out.
Yes.
The world's going to treat
With
you
you
like
in
a
the
brat.
shape, yeah.
Right. And so, you know, I would say that to that person, obviously you're not the parent or you're not the main parent, that if this parent thinks that this child can do no wrong and they walk around thinking that everyone is there to service them, at some point, whether they learn it early or whether they learn it later, they're going to learn
Yes.
that that's not how it works. And they would rather learn it early so that the consequences are not as steep.
Right.
Case in point, this is a real life situation that happened years and years and years ago in a totally different state. I sold real estate. I'm about to sell, this lady calls me and says, hey, I need you to sell my house. Rapid. What's going on? My son is selling drugs out of my house. The house you live in. Yes, the house I live in. I got to get rid of this house. And I'm like, what happened? Well, how did this happen? I'm trying to understand. Because this is in the age, back then was in the age of open houses and stuff like that. And I'm like, he's selling drugs. You want me to host an open house? What the world? I mean, and so literally she gave this boy everything. Because his father was never there. So she felt like she had to overcompensate for the father.
Yeah.
So if he messed up and did wrong, the consequences were light, but she still, again, gave him reward. And this is especially so with the man child. And so what ended up happening was that this boy, when it got to the point where his wants exceeded her budget, he started selling drugs. At first it was out there in the street, but because he knew he could get away with it from his mom, he slowly brought it home. This is an extreme example, but this was a living example in front of my face. And it got to the place where he didn't fear his mama. He didn't fear his mother. And she has another little boy. And so she's now a prisoner in her own home and wanted me to step in, hurry up and sell this house so that she didn't have to kick him out and deal with his wrath afterwards.
Right.
And I say all that to say that, I mean, he ended up in a bad situation later on in life. And of course, you never want to blame the parent.
Yeah.
So I would never say it was the parent's fault, but I would say that it's the irresponsibility of teaching, whether it was from the parent or for somebody else early, that this child ended up doing and going the route that he went. And today he's not a productive piece of part of society. So whoever that person is, allowing, if this person is in your life, this young person, allowing them to deal with the circumstances and consequences of their action, even if it's a little thing. They want some water. Get up and get the water. And by the way, if you make a glass, wash the glass. If you, and you know, whatever the case may be, at some point, responsibility has to be had. That is all the time. You know. Oh, one other thing. I want to say this real quickly because I mentioned this. This graduates into adulthood because, like we were saying earlier, this generation wants what they want, and they want it now. And so we saw how an entire economic system can be upset by way of just some drivers, right? But not only that, you know, that might be, depending on how you look at it, a positive thing, right? That, wow, this generation, you know, I was telling, give an example of my daughter. She invested $5 in that Dogecoin situation. 2 days later, she made $40. Now, you know, she's like, oh, okay. Well, that incentivizes her to create this residual income and all that stuff. That might be a good thing. It might not be the best thing. I don't know. But the other side of that is the rate of depression, the rate of anxiety, the rate of suicide, the rate of attempted suicide, the rate of pharmaceuticals that's being distributed right now is highest among this generation of millennials. And now that I know that the millennials, I just thought millennials, but now that I see that's between the ages of 25 and 40, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. And guess what? It's not getting better. Unfortunately, my kids know too many people that have either attempted or successfully committed suicide. My kids are only 19 and 20 years old. It's not a good thing. So the younger, I don't care how old your child is, the younger that we're able to teach them and show them that they are rewarded based off of their actions, then they also suffer consequences based off of their actions. So they can mature, again, that triangle, inverted triangle parenting. So that they can then assume the responsibility of truly being a young adult or adult, the better not only will society be, but the better our days will be as we get older. That's it for now. God bless you. Thank you all for sharing with us on this evening. I can't have 3 people in the seat and we have adequate time. It just seems like it's going by too fast. But thank you for sharing your Wednesday evening with us. Listen, we're going to conclude all of this next week by talking about extended love. You have to watch in order to know what we're talking about regarding extended love. So be sure to tune in on next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Otherwise, join us on Sunday at Linked Up Church right here in Powder Springs at 8:30 a.m. We rebroadcast at 11. God bless you. And then that is it. Thank y'all.